Hey guys, this is Sid with svtperformance.com, and we are here at Keon's one-stop shop. It's a truck shop in Conway, South Carolina, and we are working on my 2009 F350 Super Duty. It's been a fantastic truck, but it has a problem that pretty much all of these Super Duty trucks are going to have at some point or another, and that is the factory cab mounts. These things, check this out, are completely shot. Look how that's crumbling apart there. It's just completely falling apart. This is a front mount, and this one's not even that bad. I mean, it looks terrible, but it's not that bad. Check the material out here. Get the light on it. It's just, you watch it just fall apart. Yeah, here it is laying on the ground. That's my cab mount right there. Just this polyurethane crap just completely crumbles. And like I said, that's not even the worst one. If you go to the back of the cab, crawl under here, look at that. Just completely shot. So Ford uses like a polyurethane foam on these cab mounts, and over time they just completely fall apart. It's not even use or abuse, anything like that, or say salt chemicals. That's not what causes it, because look at this truck. Extraordinarily clean underneath for an 09 model. Never really sees any kind of road salt, anything like that. This truck sits in the garage unless it's towing. It only has actually less than 65,000 miles on it. You can see, super clean truck. I take care of it. It's never been back to the Ford garage for anything, but the cab mounts are completely shot. Luckily, our friends over at S&B, you probably know them for their air intakes, have a brand new kit of silicone body mounts. These are not a polyurethane foam or any other kind of polyurethane material or rubber, anything like that. They are a silicone rubber. And what makes that special is these will not fail like those factory ones. This particular part number is 81-1003. Fits 08 to 2016 Super Duties. And of course the truck is a crew cab, so it is the crew cab kit. They have different kits for different cab mount configurations, because depending on the length of the cab, it has different numbers of cab mounts. You have 8, of course, on the crew cab kit. Of course you get a sticker. This is worth like 35 horsepower, so make sure you have this in the box when you open it up. You got a few other things, more bolts and all that. But the big thing with this mount is this material here. These things are a silicone rubber. They will not degrade because of ozone or other environmental conditions. And unlike a lot of the other factory replacements, these are made to fit into the keyways on the frame. You can see how it's got a little flat right there. Fits in the keyway on the frame and it won't spin. I know a lot of the other ones that are out there, because trust me, I shopped a long time before I ran across these. These things are brand new from S&B. They just came out this year. A lot of the other ones that's been on the market for a while, they don't even really fit that pocket properly. This one fits perfectly and should work way, way better. We have another video, I'll put the link in the description, of just giving a walkthrough of how this full mount here works. And there's a lot more to this than the just replacements you'll get from other places, and especially from the regular Ford ones. We're going to install them on this truck. This is not going to be a full how-to install video, just because everybody does it different. If you're doing it yourself, you're probably not going to have a 2-post lift to do this, and we are going to do a little something else under the hood while we're working on this. A little maintenance item, no big deal. But if you're doing it yourself, you're probably going to do it with a jack and jack stands in your driveway, which you can do. You just unbolt the mounts and lift one side up at a time. You only need to get it up about an inch or so to get the old ones out and the new ones back in. Like I said, this is not going to be a complete how-to. It's more of, hey, look how much better these things are, how much better they work than the factory ones. And we'll go for a little bit of a ride afterwards to see just how quiet these are. That's another big selling point of these, is the NVH reduction versus even the factory mounts. Really, this is what Ford should have had from the factory. Thankfully, we've got S&B to hook us up with some very good parts and not have to run that factory crap that falls apart after a few years anymore. So let's move on to the install.
Yep.
So we pulled 3 out of them real quick just to show you an example of what the factory ones look like. So this is the best one we found so far, and you can see it is just completely crumbled, falling apart. This one is a little bit worse for wear, and this one was completely gone. There was no bushing left. It was just metal. There's none on the top either. So that corner of the cab, this was the back corner, had actually no mount at all. So you can see this is probably going to be just a little bit better than this factory crap that falls apart. You can see how the metal part, the cup, is actually made a little different too on the S&B. So this is a completely different design. But I mean, just check this out. This is the best one. And you can see the factory material, you can just pick it apart. It completely falls apart. This one's almost non-existent, and this one is all over the road somewhere, probably here between South Carolina and Florida. You can find some of my cab mount. So one of the interesting things on these Ford cab mounts, even on the later years, the factory center mount is it's rubber, and on the older like 7.3 trucks, they're all rubber, the same type of material, and it's actually the same part number for this center rubber mount. These things never wear out, last forever. They're just a basic rubber, just like any other rubber grommet or anything. They will eventually start to crack on the outside, but they're nothing like that polyurethane. And one of the other things to note is the bolts on the center rubber mount are longer. The bolts that come with the S&B kit, I'll show you here, they are all the same length because the mounts that S&B give you are all the same length. That one rubber mount is actually taller. That's why you have to have the longer bolt from Ford. But with the S&B kit, so this was the other polyurethane style mounts. That's that factory rubber mount. These are the 2 factory bolts. The ones that S&B give you are all this length because the bushings are all the same length, so you can have the same length bolts. But that's one thing to just keep in mind if you open this up and you're looking for these 2 longer bolts, one from each side, you don't need them. Needs a little persuasion sometimes, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Get that line tight high enough, it'll spin right out.
So out of all the bushings that came out of the truck, this is the one in the absolute best shape as far as the polyurethane ones go. And you can see it compared to the S&B. So here's the big thing. This is the reason why you're buying this S&B kit. It's for this different material, this silicone rubber. It's a lot more pliable than you think it would be. It's not like super squishy or anything, but it's definitely softer than you would think. It's softer than the factory rubber mounts, which I have one of those right here. So the center mounts from the factory are these old style rubber ones, and these things are fairly firm. This is actually, they're fairly similar in durometer, I would say, to these rubber mounts, but I would imagine this is going to have a whole lot better NVH qualities than the old style rubber mounts. As you can see, these things hold up well. This is what was on the old 7.3 trucks, and I'm pretty sure this part number goes back even through the OBS trucks. I think back into the 80s, Ford used these exact same mounts, but they, in 05, switched to this polyurethane foam for most of the mounts. You can see it just completely disintegrates, it just falls apart. And it's pitiful because the old style rubber stuff still works. But for the money, I wouldn't waste my time and money going back with these old rubber Ford ones. I would just buy the S&B kit, because you come with all the shims and everything just to cut down on NVH even more than these would ever be able to. That was the whole reason why Ford went with this new material, was to cut down on noise, vibration, and harshness. S&B does that with a material that will basically last the lifetime of the truck. You'll never have to redo these. You're a fool if you go back with the factory Ford polyurethane stuff, because it's going to just do this again. Like I said, this is an 09 truck, so we're talking, 10 plus years old, but the truck only has 65,000 miles. It's never abused. It's never seen salt or anything like that. This junk just deteriorates over time. I would never put this in something that I was putting back together. So if you ever have to go cab up for whatever reason on one of these trucks, all the way up into even the newest stuff, I would definitely look at the S&B kit and never put this junk back in. So we've had about a week to ride around with the S&B cab mounts on our 2009 F350, and I have to say they're perfect. There's no two ways about it. This thing is quieter than I've heard it in years. It's sort of surprising, as those cab mounts deteriorated, you started to get more and more NVH in the truck. And you just sort of chalk it up as it just is what it is, because it developed so slowly over time. It's like the frog in the boiling water theory, Throw a frog in the boiling water, it'll jump out, slowly bring the heat up on it, and it'll just stay there. That's sort of how this was. It just took forever for you to get to that point where you were so bad, but when you started hearing like the cab squeaking and rattling around all the time, you knew that it was time to do something. And we got to the point where the back mounts were so shot that the thing was just making terrible noise, and you could actually see body deflection. So we had to replace them. I had to do some work anyways. My final opinion on it is these things are so good that if you put the factory Ford ones back in, you're just dumb. I don't know why anybody would put those polyurethane foam mounts back in when S&B is offering this kit now with the new silicone rubber. I expect these things will hold up for many, many, many years, whereas the factory Ford polyurethane foam ones start to deteriorate, really as soon as you mount them on the truck. It's not like this truck lived a hard life, and there was a couple mounts where, you know, they were just completely gone. The body was literally just floating above the frame mount. So if you have to do any cab off work on any of these newer Fords, just go ahead and buy the S&B mounts, put those on, and be done with it. Do it once, do it right. I highly recommend the S&B cab mounts. They work.